Hello, ladies and gentlemen. If you'd like to come back and take your seats, I believe we're now going to go to the next part of question time. Yeah. So, can I just get a gauge in the room of who's actually running in here? Because I know there's a few candidates who are. Do you want to just stand up? Because I can't actually see you very clearly. I'm just interested. So it's actually good to see that the other candidates from other nights are obviously coming along, potentially gauging up who they might be working with next year. Some very excited people up over there in the corner. So next up we have I believe the VP Welfare. So I'm going to welcome Charlie Eastall to the stage. Potentially, if Charlie's coming. So as per any activity that's run in the student union, there's always a few little technical difficulties, which if it goes on much longer, I may have to start telling some jokes. Charlie's over there. Charlie's on his way. So a quick joke is, why did the alligator not eat the clown car? Because it tasted funny, yes. Yes, that was my favourite joke of the week. So, right, I believe Charlie is progressively working his way towards the stage. Yep. I'll bring out some more jokes later. I've got to go and look them up on my phone. So, Charlie Eastall. So, over to you, Charlie.
Okay, so I'm going to move out of the way, and as you probably worked out from the number of seats and the number of candidates, there's no place for me, so I'll be walking around.
Alright, thank you. How are you?
Good, long time no see. Didn't realise you were hosting. I would have been here sooner, hadn't I?
Just ask me to come along.
I'd like to welcome to the stage Josh, Hannah, Saul, Hannah, Sue, Peter, Lucy, Tamsin, Munya, and Tilly.
You're doing well. I was like, no, I'm final year. I'm so stressed, you have no idea. I didn't sleep at all Friday night for no reason. Okay. Oh, please do. I'll be well up there. Yeah.
That's brilliant, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Is that working? Okay, so it appears I've been left out a little bit, so I'm not sure where. I'll just walk around, mill around. Where's Leonie? Just so I know. Leonie's there, so I'll go to Leonie, maybe we'll speak to the crowd, make this very interactive. So, this is the most competitive position that we have this year, and it's the most competitive position that we've had the whole time I've been here. Is it ever? Ever. Okay, round of applause for ever. Okay, so you've been warmed up. Those of you who watched last year know that this is never easy. Especially with me. So we have half an hour, 45 minutes, then we'll have a short break, a welfare break. It's going to be a very long 45 minutes, and then we'll have another half an hour, 45 minutes, depending on how they're doing. So, they've had, in the same fashion as the others that you've seen, one pre-submitted question, and they've all had time to prepare for it. So, we will work going down this way with answers, starting with Josh. For the first time in living memory, there have been 2 sudden deaths on campus. What has failed? Josh?
Okay, well, first of all, I just would like to say how tragic the sudden deaths were. I mean, you don't expect something like this to happen, especially in such a short space of time. When people die in these circumstances, and obviously each death was slightly different, we inevitably look for a kind of single explanation, but I don't think it can really be reduced to that. we can be sure, however, that at least one of the reasons for what happened was to do with mental health, because I think we can all really recognise that unless you're under a lot of emotional strain, you wouldn't put yourself in these situations. So that's the key reason for that.
Cut you off there, Josh, just because roughly 30 seconds each, so move on next.
Okay.
Okay, so firstly, I would like to say it is such a tragedy that these deaths even happened in the first place. It does show, however, how vital the services are at Surrey, that we need to show support to all our students here. I would also say that since the first death happened, a sudden death policy was implemented, which means that the university will now be more prepared for any of these further situations. I don't think anything necessarily failed as such when it comes to these deaths, but I do think that the lines of communication between students and services are not necessarily obvious or clear-cut. Every student, especially those at Manor Park and Hazel Farm and other campus accommodations, should know where and how to access help.
I'll cut you there. Next, talk.
Firstly, I'd like to express my feelings of sympathy for the tragic loss of Christopher Chai and Daniel Fury, and I'd like to send condolences to their families. But I don't feel comfortable, and I don't think it's right to speculate on any issues with these people. However, I do think it's very important that the welfare and self-being at university is paramount. I want you all to imagine a perfect utopian environment. In a utopian environment, the perfect world, this is how university should be for a student. In a perfect world, I would strive for a stronger, more approachable support network. In a perfect world, the mentoring system, which is a great idea, but when around £250,000 is spent on a year, it should be better. Perhaps by implementing a rating system for the students for their mentors. In a perfect world, we would all be able to spot the symptoms of depression, know what to do if one of us was suffering from it. And if it came...
Wrap up, please. Sorry, to be fair, there's 9 of you, even 1 minute each, you've got 10 minutes per question. Next.
I think it's important to note that we haven't had coroner's reports yet. So as Saul was alluding to, it's everything we're talking about is based on limited information. Making assumptions doesn't help us honour either Christopher or Daniel, the 2 students who aren't with us anymore, and it doesn't help prevent this situation happening again. So personally, I want to avoid talking in absolutes, and I don't want to make a guess about what has failed, because I don't know. None of us can speak for definite. However, I do think it's appropriate to think about how students cope with the pressures of university life and the support we offer, so most notably for me, the Centre for Wellbeing. Demand for this service has increased every year, however resources have remained largely the same. The staff work hard to try and ensure everyone who contacts the centre receives a response per 24 hours.
Let's wrap up. Sorry, Peter.
Well, as Josh said, there's not really any single explanation for it. There are many reasons that could be the case why this happened, but there are a few probable reasons why. Mine, personally, would be that the Centre for Wellbeing isn't as approachable as it could be. There's a lot of stigma around it. If you've seen my manifesto, you've seen that one of my main policies is stigma annihilation, apologies for the pun. And it's all about changing the way that students see it. If you change the way that freshers see the Centre for Wellbeing, you can change the way the rest of the university see it as they progress in subsequent years. People find it more approachable, that £250,000 a year spent on it will be spent more effectively, and students will feel like they've got to have a much more effective support network.
Yes, got that. Thank you.
I think there's a lot of talk about breaking stigmas, but how you would do that. And I think when I first saw the question, the idea of something failing, I think it's that the student support network is full of signposts. We're telling people to go here, we're telling people to go there, but who's guiding anyone? Who's showing them where to go? Like actually physically taking them there. You know, we have personal tutors, but they're like, oh, I think there's somewhere down at the bottom of the hill that you can go and talk to somebody. Why don't they get out of their office and go and take them down to the Centre of Wellbeing, show them a counsellor and make sure that they receive the support they need?
So I'd like to say, I think it's a tricky situation, of course, and I don't think the union or the university particularly failed here, but there are things that could have been sharper. I think that an email, even from the VP Welfare, to reassure the students and to tell them of the services that we have available, the Centre for Wellbeing, the student life mentors who are just available there for the first years, but using them, they have been trained by the Samaritans in active listening. So they are there to help you as well and to signpost you to the Centre for Wellbeing.
Thank you, Amelia.
I think it's difficult to highlight one particular area of failure, but I think it's important to understand that the communication between the university services and the students can sometimes be blurred, and that needs to be honed in and become a lot sharper. I think it's also important to highlight, in my opinion, the fact that I've put in my manifesto an evaluation of student care services, because potentially I want to restructure, I want to lead a restructuring of how student care services operate, because there are gaps in how they are implemented, and I thought there is room for improvement.
I don't think that anything has failed, although it is a tragedy. But we cannot blame ourselves for what happened to the 2 biomedical students that happened last semester. Not a day goes by where I don't feel that it could have been prevented. But we, as a university and as individuals, we cannot stop someone from making a decision like that and taking their own life. But we can offer support to those who are at risk. I believe that it is important that we focus on increasing awareness at this university that there is support available for those who are feeling down. I want to begin with launching campaign after campaign after campaign, so that there's a constant presence on campus that regards mental health, raising awareness of signs of depression and anxiety, and extending a helpful hand to those and telling them about the Centre of Wellbeing and explaining how to make an appointment with a counsellor.
Thank you. So, well done to all the candidates. Before we move on, I just need to clarify that it has not been confirmed that 2 students have taken their lives. There is still a coroner's report pending on the 2nd student that we're speaking about, so please be clear about that. Okay, so that's a very difficult question to start on. It's very emotive, and it's something which I guess we're going to get somewhat of a similar answer. Everyone agrees that something needs to be done. Everyone agrees that it's an awful issue. I'm going to move on next into specific questions to each candidate based on what they have written in their manifestos. There's no surprises here because they've written it. There might be something that crops up that they're not expecting to, but everything I've taken is from the public domain, so it seems fair. So, Lucy, first of all, you talk about inspiring nice ideas, but what and how? You talk about leading, equipping, and giving ownership back to the student. How has ownership been taken away from the student?
I don't think it's been taken away, but I think through having welfare training for all societies and sports clubs, so that the committees are equipped when they face difficult or challenging situations within their society. Everybody has something going on in their world, and maybe their social sec or someone in the committee of the society they're a part of is the only person that has noticed that. But what if they don't know how to handle it? I had a friend, a course mate, who told me recently about something that went on within her sports club, and they weren't prepared to handle it, and they didn't know where to go to get the support. So I think along with the training that goes for societies and sports clubs at the beginning of the year, and if a new society is elected halfway through the year, they have some sort of welfare training that gives them, so they know exactly what services are available, and that they are given tools that they can use. So that's all about equipping, and then hopefully inspiring other people to want to be able to see change as well within that, not letting people struggle, not letting people fall off, not having your teammate just suddenly start disappearing, not really coming to training anymore.
Okay, thank you for that, Lucy. Next, Peter. You talk in your manifesto about how you love puns openly. That's not the question. That would be nice. I didn't know what the D meant on your manifesto, so I googled the D. And
don't do that. Don't do that, guys. Whatever you do, don't do that. Unless, of course, it's Twitter, in which case, Twitter it away, because I'm on there as well.
Okay, I googled the D, and the first search result was Urban Dictionary, and Urban Dictionary tells me that it is the male penis. Are you aware of this, and are you a serious candidate?
Bit harsh, but fair enough. Yes, I think as a uni student it'd be pretty poor if I wasn't aware of what the D meant. Yeah, I am. I chose it because it's a gimmick. It's the way the sort of unfortunate.
Are you a gimmick?
No. It's unfortunate because a lot of people, to get into this sort of position, in order to get noticed by the university students, especially people who don't know as much about the election process and about what VP welfare do, a lot of it is handing out cookies, handing out bananas, which some of you have my bananas. You know, and it's odd. It shouldn't be that way. VP welfare is about a lot more than that.
Okay, thanks. Good answer. So, Tamsin.
Yes.
There's a contradiction here in your manifesto. You speak about how students should know how to keep a work-life balance and all this kind of thing, which I think everyone would agree with. Then you also say how you'll hand out your phone number, be contactable at any time, including those all-nighters in the library. Can you please explain how this balance will work when you're in office?
Okay, fair point. I think for the students who do take all-nighters in the library to revise for exams or to get coursework done for deadlines, it's important to have someone there. I'm aware that I have a job, or I might have a job in the office to work on as well. So I think it's about dividing that time equally for myself, as well as promoting that time balance for students as well. I would aim to run workshops on how to create that balance in your life, because both are important. If you just focus on the academic side, then you're going to lose out on the friendships and building the communities that we are talking about here.
Okay. So, for the next question, I'm going to take a quote from Saul's manifesto, and it says that, I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrongly. I've got to find it now, sorry. So you think university should be a happy, safe, enlightening experience, right? Happy, safe, and enlightening. If you just turn your attention to the projector. Thank you, you can take that off. Is this a happy, perhaps happy, is this a safe and enlightening experience that you will promote to your students when you are VP Welfare?
Yes. Well, firstly, I'd just like to say that last year I was perceived as enjoying my social life a little bit too much, maybe. And I believe that was perhaps my biggest weakness, but I believe now it's my biggest strength. This year, I've already showed that enjoying my social life is a positive. I have started a business, a successful business in town, trying to increase students' nightlife experience. I've also been social sec of Surrey Snow Sports, which I'm thoroughly enjoying. And yeah, I do believe I can make a student at Surrey have a happy, safe and enlightenment experience. Yeah.
Right, that's all. I can assure you that was as nerve-wracking for me as it was for you.
Yeah,
I've been
so much for that.
I'm sure you're very welcome. So next, Josh.
Yeah.
Josh, you talk about promoting greater access.
Yeah.
Can you explain to what, for what?
Of course, yeah. By greater access, what I mean is once, if I were to get the role, I would spend some time figuring out which students felt like they were being excluded from services. So I'd spend a good couple of months at the start of the job talking to as many students as possible, because I think communicating with students is the only way to find it out. And it's all very well speaking to people through online forums and through email, but at the end of the day, speaking to people directly is the best way to get their views. So I'd spend a good couple of months doing that, and once I found out what the welfare issue on that was, who felt like they were being excluded. So obviously we've had the issue of people that live over at Hazel Farm feeling like they're excluded from campus. So if that were an issue that came to the fore, I would then look into methods that could be used to resolve that. So we've already had the potential for improved transport, so that could be something that could be done. So it's all about practical solutions that can be brought in, and it's about things that are actually possible, because I don't think that, as much as we want it to be, that this experience can be quite a utopian experience.
Thanks, Josh. So, Munya, in your manifesto you talk about how accommodation prices have gone up every year, and there's no improvement in quality that's provided.
is the concept of inflation alien to you, and do you suggest that perhaps because of the influence which energy costs, which always rise more than inflation, have on accommodation prices, I'm going to put something to you. Would you push for accommodation prices to be separate from energy prices and for students to pay for energy?
That's something I was thinking about to an extent. I was thinking about the fact you might be able to use a meter to manage your own energy costs, because that would also prepare you for living independently. But also, I had a conversation with the interim CEO, and it was mentioned to me that the university accounts actually, in a way, doctors the accounts so that not doctors their accounts, but it's difficult to identify where the profits of accommodation actually go. And accommodation, these aren't his words, but this is my interpretation of his words, but the accommodation actually props up other services within the university. So I feel it's unfair that students are burdening the cost of other failures elsewhere in the university. And I understand the concept of inflation very much. I study politics, thank you very much. But I think at the same...
I don't know what they're teaching. Is there a modular inflation? Did you not go?
Political economy, for one.
Did you go?
Pardon?
It's all right, we won't get too personal yet. We'll do that later. Can I just butt in a second?
Yeah.
There are no staff. Please don't make reference to staff.
Okay.
And please don't make reference to doctoring the accounts, that kind of thing. Thank you for your answer. Good answer. I'll move on next. So, Hannah Story. Yes. You talk about the number one welcome and how we should build on the number one welcome. How do you build on number one? Why not concentrate on something that actually needs improving? I'm going to give you a direct question based on something. You've talked about awareness of services, and you've said how that's something that you'd like to build on. There's a 3-week waiting list currently at the Student Services Centre for wellbeing. Sorry. Okay. Does that not mean people are very aware, and that actually the issue is not about awareness?
I think in terms of the 3-week waiting list, I think that'd be like appointments. Is that general appointments just to meet CEO consultant? Okay. I think there are people who will use those services. The reason that they're there in the first place is that they are being used. And okay, there is a 3-week waiting list. But I do think that also people that I've spoken to haven't asked them, do you know where the Centre for Wellbeing is? And a lot of them do not know. And I think, although they may not be using them currently, I think that the other people, if they need it in an emergency, then they should have more signposting, for example. But with regards to the 3-week waiting list, I think that's a tough one, because there is, unfortunately, obviously a limited amount of resources at the moment in the current sort of economic climate. So I imagine that in order to expand that, you would have to have more funds for that. So that's something that maybe needs to be talked about in next year. But again, I think there just needs to be more awareness generally over all the services.
Okay, thank you. Tilly, NUS themselves will tell you that raising awareness is not a valid campaign goal. Raising awareness, which you've put here again, is not a valid campaign goal. It's not an issue with students. What is the biggest issue with students?
You're going to have to bear with me for a second, because Laura's just describing this one for me. I got most of that, but...
If you'd like me to repeat. Awareness is not a valid campaign goal according to the NUS. What is the biggest issue that students face that you can help with?
Okay. NUS raising awareness. What is a bigger issue for students at the moment? Personally, I think one of the biggest issues that young people have these days is employability. And we have this mindset that we've come from our parents, we've come from a generation that had it all. And we're a young generation that don't have it all. We have, the recession that we're going through at the moment, the economy. Our employability rates are at risk. And therefore, when we think to ourselves, oh God, I don't think I'm worthy, we've got serious bad mental health issues that are associated with our employability at the moment. So I think one of the biggest problems that we've got is definitely our mental health. okay? We are worth it. Just because we're finding it really, really, really hard to find jobs at the moment, and because of the current economy, does not deter the fact that we are still absolutely fantastic students. And we deserve the best jobs that are out there. We deserve the best that we can get out of life. So I think one of the biggest problems that young people, students at this university are plagued with these days are a negative outset of mind that we're going to graduate from university and it's going to be nothing but an upward track from there.
Thank you, Tilly. So, finally, Hannah Waterhouse. Hannah, you talk in your manifesto about how there should be greater support in the first term for students. You've been the union chair this year. You understand, hopefully firsthand, how if you give more of something, then you have to take something away. If you're giving greater support, where will you take funds away from?
I don't think it necessarily has to be in terms of funds. I think it's looking at what this union does now and what we can do to give greater support. So I've been speaking to some of the sabbatical officers at UEA, and they run something called a Don't Panic Social. And it's regarding student housing, but I think we could adopt it in the first 6 weeks of term and run a Don't Panic Social if you maybe haven't settled in with your flatmates, if you maybe aren't loving your course, and you're not really sure about university. The first 6 weeks of terms is when most students will drop out. So it doesn't have to be a financial cost associated with this. It's about thinking about actions that come from the Students' Union.
Hannah, good point, but we also have, as the union, finite resources, not just money. The union's already working non-stop, as you know. Where are we going to invest less or fewer resources, not just money? Where are we taking away from in order to provide this? It has to come from somewhere.
I don't think it necessarily does. I've spoken to some people, staff, I won't mention names, who said that the first 6 weeks of term are a little bit of fair game at the moment. Yes, we have a lot that happens in Freshers' Week, but aside from that, there's not really a conflict or time resources that are going to drastically have to be taken away from.
Okay, thank you, Hannah. So, that's the first round of manifesto questions. I think that was quite nerve-wracking for me as well as for them. So well done to everyone. Can we get a round of applause, because that's really hard to do. Okay, I have quite a tough question from Twitter. So I'll tell you which order. In fact, if we go down this way, so start from Tilly and then go down, I think that's fair. Name one thing that the current VP Welfare should have done.
Name one thing that Tom VP Welfare should have done.
One thing.
One thing. Tom, wherever you are, please forgive me for this, but I really think that you should have taken a much more campaign approach. I have seen nothing of you this year, and I barely knew your name until quite recently. Okay.
Munya.
I believe I'm right in saying that after the first death, that Mental Health Week was cancelled, and that's something that I feel was probably one of the worst decisions you could possibly make, especially around that particular time, because even though we didn't know the causes of the death, there are people that might be affected by the death and they might need support as well. So that's my own personal view.
Okay. Tamsin.
Hi. I personally believe that the current VP Welfare should have had more contact with the students on a regular basis. So weekly emails or monthly emails, something like that. So a constant that is always there, making the students aware of his presence on campus.
Okay, thank you, Lucy.
I think I'm going to have to agree with the people that have gone before me. It is about a presence on campus, including their maintenance mind week. I thought that was excellent, and I definitely would have liked to have seen that come back again, and just generally being more available in his office hours as well. I know that he has a lot of other things. As VP, they have to do lots of other meetings and committees, and we need to remember that. We have to remember that they're a trustee as well. But despite that, I feel like there could have been more availability.
Peter.
I hate to say it, but I also agree with the ones that have gone before me. I don't agree with the whole campaign approach. I think that I was talking to him the other day. It's a short-term measure. It raises awareness, which doesn't do much. What he's been doing is long-term sustainability, but maybe letting people know exactly what was going on, like I said, weekly email, just progression of, for example, the accommodation charter that's been pushed through. I know about it because I asked them about it. It should be, I'm going for this, who's with me, do you want some input?
Hannah?
Attending some meetings, sort of working groups. So LGBT has a working group from the university's, I can't remember what the committee's called, but there's a working group that LGBT work with, and they haven't really felt a presence from BP Welfare, but they're a really strong group that represents student opinion. So I'd have liked to see more involvement from them.
So,
firstly, I want to say, while we're all criticising Tom, he's a lovely guy, so I just want to say that across. But also, I don't think that it's office hours that he's lacked in. I think that maybe getting around campus, introducing himself to all the students was something that he could have done a little bit more.
Okay, I think also with Tom's, what he's been working on this year, it's been Peter, sorry, said it is all long term and it is all behind the scenes. And I think I would personally like to see him a bit more visible, but that's just my personal preference. It could work for other people, it could not. Again, contact with students is all about being visible and out there and just showing that he's there. Also, that he does have a blog on the uni website, but I only did just discover that when I was looking at the position. So maybe making that like a weekly email or at least a monthly email just to say, hi, I'm here if you want me.
Thank you, and Josh.
Okay, well, we've had some really good responses to that question. Okay, well, I would say, I'm totally in agreement with what Manya says about them cancelling Mine Maintenance Week. It does seem a bit, well, ridiculous, really, after what happened. So I kind of think that should not have happened. So perhaps Tom should have fought harder for that, perhaps. I don't know. Okay, but in terms of what can you do, because obviously it's an issue of contact and communication is clearly central to that. So perhaps you should have spent more time going outside the union and talking to people. I think that's what you have to aim to do, because to make students aware of the services that are already available, you're going to have to go out and speak to them, because they don't have enough time to look through the student union website and find out where all these services are. Often you have to be quite kind of, well, not in your face, but kind of just get out there a bit more, if you see what I mean.
Thank you. So, I think we've heard some really good ideas. Remember, to the candidates, this isn't just sitting here grilling Tom. In fact, it's very much not sitting here grilling Tom. If you are elected, which hopefully one of you will be, Reopen Nominations is a candidate. We should have mentioned that. Ron, Reopen Nominations, is a candidate. If one of you is elected, you will be reminded of what you just said. You will definitely be reminded. So please keep that in mind when you're actually implementing your policy. While I'm sitting here, and I don't know if anyone else feels the same, I feel as if you're agreeing a lot. And that's okay. It's okay to agree. But this is an election. And we're not voting for a gang of nice people. Maybe if we were, we might have a nice gang, but we need to vote for someone. There's a first preference all the way down to a 10th preference. Yes, Ron. So we need to know. And I want to know why, not I, but why these students should vote for you and not for the other people. So, okay, I'm being sent some questions which aren't necessarily that appropriate. If I could repeat them, I would. Right. We got any from the floor? Anyone got a divisive question? Not one that we have answers. There, this is great. Okay, I agree, I'm nice. Or I'm even nicer. Something which is going to divide people. Hand up over here first. So yeah, if you can just speak loud and clear and just allow time for some writing to be done.
Okay, so basically, before when they were talking about, I think it was Hannah's question actually, and one of the things they said was that there's a 3-week waiting list for the Wellbeing Centre. Now, I'm sorry, I think that's a massive issue that may need to be addressed. I'm aiming the question at everybody, really. How would you either reduce that or create other services for those students who are on that waiting list and maybe need it rather than in 3 weeks waiting?
So, good question, tough question. We'll start off in the middle with Peter.
Well, in my manifesto, I talk about the Freshers' Promise, which, in a nutshell, gives student reps more responsibilities. Now, as Lucy rightly said, mentors or personal tutors on the course don't do a lot for you in terms of mental health. You know, if your course if you're not happy with your course or something, they may, you know, say swap to aerospace instead of mechanical, but that does nothing for you mentally. What I propose is that you have someone relatable, like your student rep in your year, or maybe even the year above might be more effective because they've already been through what you've gone through, to be there as a reassuring arm. That way you've got more services for anyone who's feeling unhappy about their course. But so you take it off the Centre for Wellbeing, but also then you've got the academic rep role has a lot more responsibility. And it means that people will take the role a lot more seriously. When I did it last year, I felt that there wasn't enough. I couldn't do anything. I took the role because I thought, well, I'm having a hard time settling in, but I've got over it. Maybe I can help someone else. But I couldn't. All I could do was say, oh, you know, this person's unhappy with this lecturer.
I have to get to wrap up there. So.
All right.
Okay, Tilly.
Well, I think one of the most obvious answers to reduce the waiting list at the Centre of Wellbeing would be to get another counsellor in, but it's not as simple as that. You know, that's going to cost a lot of money. That's going to cost a lot of admin work and a lot of negotiating for something like that to happen. So I think maybe we need to train our mentors to actually take a more active approach to people's mental well-being. So, well, just people's well-being in general, actually. So the mentors know, because they're the ones in touch with people. They're the ones that know, should be trained to look out for certain signs of anxiety, depression, and they're the ones that make move towards them and say, are you okay? A sort of a big older brother, sister system going on.
Okay, thanks, Tilly. So, Josh.
Okay, well, as I mean, we've had some good responses, but yeah, I mean, I think it's totally appalling that there's a 3-week waiting list, because if you need to see someone, you kind of need to see them right away. My whole kind of approach to this is that you need straightforward, achievable goals. And I've heard, and there are 2 ideas really, I think, that can be used to achieve this. First of all, I think that savings will have to be made somewhere else, and we will have to take on the services of another counsellor, because you just can't have this kind of gap between seeing someone. And second of all, I think exactly that the responsibilities should be shared out amongst the other roles. So, for example, the role of VP Welfare itself could perhaps take on more of these. So, for example, just engaging with people more on a personal level, because I feel that's what I'm good at. I enjoy talking to people. So by getting out there and kind of engaging with people on a personal level, I think that's one way to do it. And also with the court life mentors as well, they could take on more of the role, as already been said.
Munya.
Firstly, I want to point out that, as everyone has said, 3 weeks is a long time. But also, if you go out and you access public health services, you can wait for a long time to access mental health services as well, unless you're in dire need. But I feel my approach would be, at the moment, there's £2 million spent on staffing costs for the student care services. The student life mentoring program takes about £200,000 a year now, a reduction from £250,000 a year to run. I feel that the student life mentoring program could be a volunteer program and can be just as effective, because I think the people there genuinely care. I think that money could be reallocated and given to the Centre for Wellbeing to provide for new counsellors, new staff, that would hopefully alleviate the burden of demand.
Okay, thank you, Munya. Hannah.
I think, I'm Tilly's idea about the court life mentors. I think we do need to expand that role. That's part of I put that in my manifesto about expanding that. In terms of how you do that, I think that more training in terms of mental health and that kind of thing is very important. Linking that to the wellbeing centre, I do think that if cases are particularly bad, that they should maybe take that to the wellbeing centre and say, this case is bad, this needs to be prioritised above another case, for example, if there is a waiting list. But again, the waiting list is always going to be a problem, and we do need to work on that somehow. Unfortunately, I don't have the direct answer right now.
All right, I'll stop you there. Tamsin. So I keep delaying on saying her name because I keep wanting to say Tasmin and then realise
it's definitely not Tasmin. I appreciate you taking the time to say my name properly. Thank you. Yes, this is a big problem, the waiting list for the Centre for Wellbeing. However, means have actually already been put into action. The student life mentors, which they did have their name changed over the summer, they are now student life mentors, not court life mentors. They have training now. They are being trained by Samaritans in active listening. So that service is there. Unfortunately, it has now been reduced to just first years that receive the student life mentors. So it's not all of us. So us being candidates, being second year, third year, fourth year even, we don't have that facility. So we probably don't actually see it. But it is there for the first years. It is available. I also agree with some of my other candidates saying that VP Welfare, we have a role to take in this. People could come and speak to us as the VP Welfare. It's part of our job to interact with people.
Thank you. So,
I believe there's two options for this. The first option is that in the last few weeks I've been lucky enough to sit in on some court line mentoring, and I've seen the positives and the negatives of it. So I believe that the money put into, which is 250, around about that much, can be reduced and put into putting some more money into the Centre of Wellbeing. The other option would be another option would be making sure that the mentors are trained professionally, which is in process, which I'll be honest, I've just found out. Trained professionally, and regular students having regular ways of marking their mentors, so that we can check that the mentors are doing their proper job.
thank you. So, Lucy, Ked?
I recently heard about the Centre of Wellbeing putting in a place of a drop-in service in the library. I don't know if that is coming to be yet, and I don't know how it would work. But I think the idea of a drop-in service, which would probably again get oversubscribed, would be another way of having and taking the focus away from counsellors, but using like the buddy system, like P was talking about the course reps and giving them more responsibility. I don't think we should be taking away the focus. I think the course reps at the moment, I mean, I'm still sitting in broken lecture theatre seats, and I don't know about you. I feel like that needs to be addressed, and the course reps are there to be tackling those issues. I think we could give other students an opportunity, not just the course reps, to be able to look after students in lower years. And when I was at college, we had like the A2s would partner up with an AS doing similar courses, and they would be able to just help them out with their work if they needed it, be able to just chat with them, and it'd be just like a small meeting each week, and it was so helpful. I was a mentee and then I was a mentor, and I loved it, and I thought that was a great way of doing it because it also opened up my social circle. It also got me into other societies and clubs within my college. I also think that prevention is better than cure. So I think that going back to this idea of having personal tutors and faculty a lot more aware of the students and giving them more of a role.
Thank you. So Hannah Waterhouse.
Thank you. 3 weeks is a very long time. It was up to as high as 5 weeks in December. However, staff do work really hard to try and ensure that everyone gets a response within 24 hours. So they are aware it's not an ideal situation. I think the solution lies with the relationship we have with the university. A lot of the student support services we have are university run, so I think it's really important that they understand what student opinion is on this, that students are worried that waiting times are so long, and looking at the effectiveness and limitations of those services we do have. So people have talked about the student life mentors only reaching out to students in their first year at Surrey, so maybe looking at the funds that they get and reapplying them to other areas.
Thank you, Hannah. So thank you to the candidates for that. As you can see, with so many candidates, it does take a while to get through. Some of the questions I'm going to ask next, I'm going to push on 30 seconds each, just to keep it short and snappy. Hopefully you'll be able to say, express yourself well in 30 seconds. I know that is tough. I have to announce that for the first time ever for these elections, we are currently a UK trend on Twitter, hashtag Surrey Decides. So on that note, if everyone can keep doing that, then we'll go higher. That's how it works, and we'll stay there for longer as well. So please do that. That's brilliant success. Okay, so now after all this woo, we are a trend, woo, I'll just get to a question. Woo. No, I'm not lying. Any questions from the floor? Rather than me sort of... Hand up went... Yours went up first over here, so I'm going to go over here. I'll come back over if we have some more time. So listen carefully, and remember you only have 30 seconds, and I am going to stick to 30 seconds and just cut you off.
I thought I heard something earlier about how student life mentors are only really available for first-year students while they're living there. Obviously, as you go through university, second year, third year, fourth year, you're more aware of what's on campus to help you. But as the years progress, there's more stresses, more workload stress. Is there, if you could put anything into place, or if you're aware of anything that's in place, is there anything specifically to help people in second and third year with issues?
Okay, so you have 30 seconds each. I'm going to start with Josh.
Okay, well, I'm not exactly sure, but so I don't want to give an answer that's wrong. So I will find out, and then I will get back to you.
Good honesty. Good honesty.
Yeah, I'm honest.
Okay. I think student life mentors. Okay, they are for first years, but I think maybe there should be an opt-in option for other years to have a student life mentor, potentially for second years more so than the older years. Just so they do have someone that if they want to talk, they can do, and there's someone that's personal to them as well. And there are, I think at the moment, there are some sort of workshops in Splash in the library who do talk about
30
stress
seconds.
with library.
Thank you. So,
from what I've seen, I think that mentors are specifically for first years, just to introduce them into the world of being at university. So I feel that what we're trying to achieve at this university after first year, that you have a group of friends or you are part of a sports group, so that you shouldn't have to go to other allocations. You should be able to have to go to your friends, or you should know where you can go to speak to. Yeah.
Thank you. Hannah.
I can't think of anything specifically for second or third years, so I think this is maybe a job that the union needs to embrace. Looking at the greater support in the first weeks of term that I referenced in my manifesto, looking at different events that the union can put on to help engaging with students. A thing that I think is particularly important is students returning from placement, because they've been away from the university lifestyle for up to a year. So I think it's really important that the change comes from the union rather than relying on university services.
Thank you. Peter.
Yeah, this is where mine and Lucy's ideas of student course reps and the buddy system come in quite handy. I don't know about final years for people doing masters. I'm not quite sure how we do that. I'll have to look into that. But certainly for second and third years, people in the year above, people who have already been back off placement for a year, there's someone there you can relate to. It's someone you can talk to, someone who understands you, not your student mentor who hasn't been at uni for. I won't be rude, but.
Okay, Lucy.
I think that you could take the away from doing the workshops in Splash and in the library, putting them in the communal areas within the halls. So promoting those areas, because they are meant to be there for students to use, but they're not used that often. And having workshops, so you'd have the first years being addressed, and then you would have everyone else and opportunities, and maybe there would be specific themes, and students come along if they had questions or if they had worries, and that would be an opportunity for them to talk with a mentor.
Thank you. Tamsin, I'm getting there.
So you asked, are there any services available for second and third years currently? Yes, there are, via Splash, and the Centre for Wellbeing Services are open to anyone, so all students can attend those, if there is space, of course. I agree with Hannah Waterhouse. I would like to use the union, offer workshops myself and as a group using the community officer and the part-time officers. I'd also consider using the Quiet Centre as a place to hold those workshops.
All right, thank you. Munya.
To echo what everyone else said, there are services in Splash from the centre and also provided by the Centre of Wellbeing. But I think the issue is not necessarily sometimes the services, but how they're communicated and whether or not students have the ability to access them. So I'll push for a greater level of promotion and find new and innovative ways to engage students, which is something I currently do with some of the organisations that I work with. And I'll be happy to do here. Thank you,
Munya. Finally, Tilly.
I don't think workshopping is going to do the trick, because by the time you get to third year, you think you know it all. But I really think that we need some sort of buddy system going, much like court life mentors, but more of a, similar to an academic rep, but a union rep, someone who touches with you on a daily, weekly basis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to go to one more question that's been sent in, and then we're going to have a short break and then come back. So if you can think of some questions, you can either bring them to us at the back or tweet them, maybe with the hashtag Surrey Decides. That might be a good idea. Okay, as the VP Welfare, you'll sit on a number of committees, a number of panels, including Fitness to Study. Do you have the courage to stand up against an individual who is scoring very high marks but suffering with very serious illness? And rather than answer yes or no, because I assume we'll get 9 of the same, in very, very briefly, just in one sentence, what have you done before as an example of something that shows that you do have the courage to do that? I'll give you a minute to think about that. Think of something you have done before in your life that demonstrates to the voters how you have the courage. Because if I just ask, do you, then of course you'll say yes. But as voters, give us an example of how you have courage. And I'm going to keep that to one example, not why, you don't need to tell us when, just get to the point. Okay, I'm going to start, who haven't we started with? Start with Munya.
Hold on. So, I'm short, so I kind of miss it.
Is that your example?
No, it's not quite. But it's courageous of you to ask. I've sat on a board where £1 million budgets have been thrown around, and I've sat on a board with people that are a lot more experienced than I am, and I only have in my toolkit my experience as someone who's a service user versus someone who's got experience with accounts, etc. And I'm very, 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 very persuasive when it comes to pushing forward my experiences upon somebody who...
Okay, Munya, that's it. That's your experience. Next, Tamsin.
Hi. My experience would be my physical health, not being physically fit to do particular academic tasks, and having to apply for extenuating circumstances and push through and get through the work that way. And yes, it's hard, it's difficult, but actually it's very courageous doing it, and I think a lot of other students have...
Okay, I'll cut you there, just stick to yourself. Right, Peter?
Well, one of my best friends last year took to, unfortunately, copying a piece of coursework. Now, I spend my entire life, as you can see from my manifesto, trying to make other people laugh, and other people's opinions of me matter a lot. However, where it's unjust, you have to put your foot down. You have to be strong in what you believe in.
What did you do?
Reporting, basically.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Hannah?
As union chairperson, I've been trained and invited to sit on university panels already, so my example would be doing it already.
Okay, flip back over to Tilly. Sorry to the camera for this difficulty. It's very difficult for me to remember as well.
I need a quick shout. By the way, Laura's written here that I have one example of a courageous thing that you did in decision making. Okay, well, last year I was on the snow sports committee, and I had to make... There was a lot of money at stake, and I had to make the decision that we need to cut this off right now or lose more money. And that involved standing up in front of the entire committee and just putting my fist down and saying, no more of this. We've got to get our act together. We're going to lose a little bit of money, but it's better than losing the whole pot. And then on top of that, I had to write a big apology email to the entire club, explaining the entire situation. But at the end of the day, it was accepted warmly, and I feel that was a brave decision.
Okay, thank you. Josh?
Okay, I would say in my role as academic rep, I am prepared to stand up to, well, if you're not stand up, to academics and express my opinion. So I'm not afraid to express controversial opinions if they are necessary, and I like to be liked, but I like to do the right thing more. So if I think that an injustice has been done, I will stand up on that issue.
All right.
Or not quite.
Thanks, Josh. Lucy?
So in October last year, I had a rugby injury. I'm an aerospace engineer. I was told it was quite severe at the time, although it took an age for me to get an MRI, and now I'm found out I've got to have an operation. But at the time, they told me to drop out and come back next year. That was not going to be an option for me. I wanted to study, but they were like, you're probably not going to be able to handle it. And so I had to overcome that. I had to take it upon myself to be able to find a way of getting to university. by going to student services and getting some money so I can get taxis onto campus, because there was no buses from where I live to campus.
I have to cut you there. It's a good example. So,
well, coming into Snow Sports Committee this year, we were in £2,500 worth of debt, and we needed money. Basically, we nearly lost the sponsorship of Tickled Ivory, who we had a lot of money from. I stepped forward to go and talk to the person who ran Tickled Ivory, and I saved the sponsorship for him.
thank you. And finally, Hannah.
Okay, on my placement last year, I was working in Paris, and it was a difficult team of people. Occasionally, I had to make sure that I got my ideas across as a placement student working within that environment. And I think that sometimes, especially working in another language, it was difficult to put across what I actually wanted to say, and that they would actually follow up with that.
Thank you. So we've had a lot of good examples here. We're going to take a short break, 15 minutes welfare break. Please keep tagging, what's it called, hashtagging, sorry. Yeah, all right, I'm new to Twitter. We'll be back in 15 minutes. Please stay here. Please think of some good ideas. Give these guys a massive round of applause. There'll be some punditry going on.
You join us back here in Pundits Corner after the Part 1 debate of VP welfare. Just a reminder that Stag Radio is doing an alternative red button commentary on 13:50 AM and online. So, Bakita, there have been 9 candidates for VP welfare this year. Why do you think there's been so much interest in the role?
There's definitely been more of an increase in the number of candidates, especially like when Tom ran last year there were 4, when I ran the year previous to Tom there were 3. I think it's really because of the events and the magnitude of the events that have taken place in the instances over the last year, and I think when such tragic things happen, it kind of forces people to think about how they feel about an issue and kind of choose a side, and some people choose to try and improve and kind of make a benefit and have an impact on that, and I think that that's shown in the 9 candidates that are running in this election. Definitely that they've clearly been touched by the events that have happened this year, and now that they want to put their voice and they want to stand for something.
And they want to make a change,
exactly.
Really. Mike, do you think there's just too many candidates for people to choose from?
I think having a large number of candidates, you run the risk in potentially losing yourself in sort of all the other competition. On the flip side of that, though, you can never, I mean, like, it's great having a lot of candidates run for a position, because obviously you want competition, but I think one of the candidates is doing this quite well, but I think you need to somewhat raise yourself above everyone else. You need to not only have a good manifesto, which a lot of them do, but you also need to sort of say, well, look, I'm different. You need to have that sort of memory factor as well.
And Nicole, has any candidates stood out on Twitter?
I would say that there have been a couple who have stood out, namely, let's say, Tilly. I think some of her points have been quite strong, and a lot of people have picked up on that. But again, I think because there are so many candidates, it's difficult for each of them to kind of be known. It's difficult to kind of stand out, but it is also, you know, a positive thing that there are lots of choice, but I think there might be a little bit too many for, you know, people to stand out.
And there was a lot of discussion on the welfare services that are available at university, and there's been a kind of split between the candidates whether we need to raise more awareness of these services or we need to do something about them, that there's just too much strain on them. Tom, what do you think of the candidates on this issue?
I think the issue is actually split between those two things. I think there is the issue that there are pockets of students that don't know where to access support from, and I think that is an ongoing issue that we do need to address. But I think also on the other side, there is the issue that as we try and increase the awareness of these services on campus, that they are becoming busier and busier. And so how do we kind of improve both areas at the same time? You know, we could just make sure that every single person on campus knows about the support that's available. But if that support is overwhelmed, then the support isn't available for them. And I think it goes hand in hand. And I think between all of the candidates, they've covered those areas. But it's finding that one candidate who can try and cover both, I think.
And a lot of the candidates said that this was a problem, but a lot of them haven't said what they're going to do about it, although some did mention. Ian, what did you feel on this?
I think this year it's been obviously quite prominent that the major issue for the welfare role will be mental health, and even the sense of well-being as well, the waiting list times. Obviously with recent events have had to bring in more staff that are temporary, they're not permanent staff, and potentially there's a need there to look at maybe a long-term sort of more detailed plan than what currently stands there. If it's going to be a future recurring event, potentially something that's going to be more pressing for students, which we've got not so much money, there's more pressure on the students, their academic studies. Like if you don't get good studies anymore now, it's not going to be guaranteed you're going to get a job. All of these extra things are going to add to the pressure that students are currently under, and maybe we need to look at maybe providing more of a service for them and maybe work with the university to see if that's possible to happen, and also work together to bring that service to students.
As you said, Ian, actually I've just forgotten what I was going to say. It was around the Centre for Wellbeing and increasing the staff. I mean, they are doing that. They're increasing the staff numbers, but you also raised the point of what's bigger than that. You know, it's the future of mental health at Surrey. It's not just a temporary fix on getting more people in to counsel students, and that is something that the university is currently looking at, especially since the recent events. It's something that the university is starting to look at, and it's something that VP Welfare and the President are currently sitting on in meetings with the university, looking at where does the future of student support at Surrey go, and that will be something that next year's VP Welfare will be very key in pushing forward as well.
And leading on that point as well, I think it's also about bearing in mind whose hands it's appropriate to put this kind of this weight. It is a weight. Mental well-being, it's such an important and such a big issue, and I was slightly concerned with the number of candidates that suggested that the burden and like the weight of and the responsibility of mental well-being and mental health should be put into student life mentors' hands, simply because of the fact that this is meant to be a part-time job for them, and because of like Tom knows about this, like the magnitude of mental well-being and everything that it involves, with the additional training and having students and kind of changing the role of a student life mentor to more of a mental health, mental well-being capacity, you have to also think about the strain it's going to have on those student life mentors when they're going to then have to go around campus and sort of kind of deal with their own emotional well-being and having to sort of take in the things that they hear and kind of extra responsibility that they're going to be given and looking after people that they're going to see around campus day in, day out, outside of actually meeting their mentees as well. So I think it's really important that they think about where this responsibility is going to be given and not just go for a necessary quick fix and give it to student life mentors because it seems like the easiest solution.
I think a lot of the VP welfares actually underestimated the emotional burden that the role of VP welfare is in itself, especially I think it was Tamsin, she was going to give out her phone number so people could contact her 24/7. Is that the role of VP Welfare?
It's already promoted. The VP Welfare contact details are available for students if they need them. And I think what's more important for a VP Welfare is to understand where they draw the lines of work and life, social balance. In that, if a student texts at midnight, is the best thing to wait until the morning and respond properly, because where do you draw those lines? And it is very hard, especially if you're living on campus, you're living in a student environment, and a lot of lines are blurred between work and social. But it's not a stupid point to put on her manifesto, and it's something that actually it raises a point. If my details are public and people don't know about them, and she'd put that on her manifesto, maybe that's something that we can do to help promote.
But I think also leading from that point as well, it's also understanding as a welfare candidate and potentially VP welfare that you may not necessarily be the best person to be the first point of call. So actually, instead of calling the VP welfare, maybe instead you should be calling the subject matter expert or the doctor or the advice expert. So I think that's something to bear in mind as well.
I think for the VP welfare role, obviously, like having your contact details, like Tom said, is great. Having the communication, the first handling, that's fantastic. But personally, on a personal note, you need to sort of negotiate where your time stops. you can't make your job your life. It's not everything about you. It won't define you for the entire year, because then it'll make you ill, and then that's not going to help the situation. And also the VP welfare could just take on the sort of more of a negotiated role. They're the person who organises and sort of gathers all of the right resources together for students, rather than actually being the first person to deal with that.
Exactly. Can I just go back to the previous topic about all the help and support that's on offer across campus? With sort of current VP, as I understand it, because I've actually graduated now, but with current VP and one of the ex-VPs of welfare, do you think potentially we're looking at this the wrong way, in that we're trying to provide support after the problem's happened? I mean, I don't know myself, but maybe we should be looking more at sort of the preventative measures, instead of going, well, you know, we're providing all these support services, they're struggling with the capacities that we're currently giving them, maybe they're going to struggle in the future. Maybe we should look at going, well, yeah, okay, we have people who are having these issues with stress. How can we stop the stress initially?
I think part of that point you raise is I don't want to make this sound like I'm arguing against you, but I think part of the issue is the point itself. The Centre for Wellbeing is not necessarily intended to be a kind of post-traumatic experience counselling service. It's the idea is that you kind of maintain your mental health, and I think that's something that students, if they're not immediately feeling like they need to see a counsellor or something, that actually they're not exempt from going to the Centre for Wellbeing. Yeah, I don't know if you wanted to follow up on that.
I think definitely true, and it kind of touches on what Ian was saying as well about preventive measures. I think it's, for me, like personally, as former VP welfare, it's one of the reasons why I tried to introduce, well, I did introduce the My Maintenance campaign, because I felt that rather than trying to deal with people when they feel that they're in a moment of crisis, try to get them thinking about their mental well-being in more of a positive way to sustain their mental well-being, as opposed to trying to fix it after it's not in the best of places.
It's a very key point there, isn't it? Like, it's not about just dealing with the situation as it comes. Like, obviously you need to do that, and then you recognise there's problems, but it's also about preventing it in the first place. And Welfare Warriors did a great job on you as well. But
now, two of the welfare candidates have disabilities themselves. Does this mean they have more understanding of the welfare needs of students at Surrey?
I think it would give them a more understanding in that particular area. But I think as student representatives, we need to be aware that we do represent every single student at this university. And even if we can't understand that particular issue ourselves, there are probably a whole load of other things that we can. So I think it's just positives and negatives. It all kind of, you know, because there are things that I would probably be able to understand better than maybe they would.
Nicole, have many people mentioned on Twitter what they want to see from our VP welfare candidates if they were elected?
I'd say that most people are looking for the welfare candidates to actually acknowledge some more minority groups. For example, there's something I've seen quite a few times, which has been about care leavers, and they're not really thought of as much. So that's something that they'd also like to raise. And I do once again think it's something about actually coming through on your manifesto, because lots of people have really lofty goals, but they do want to see actual tangible things that can be fixed within a year.
Well, the VP welfare debate is one that has a lot of campaigners on the campaign team. I think it's going to be, you know, strongly voted in by the students this year. And as Charlie mentioned, that hashtag Surrey Decides is actually trending on Twitter.
So exciting.
So do you think that we're going to have more people participating in the elections this year? What do you think, Lakita?
I'd say hopefully, so long as the union's doing its job, promoting the elections and the voting and different things like that. But I think that it is a testament to, I've kind of, over the last couple of years, a lot of people know that I'm really into Twitter, so I have seen a lot more of an increase when it comes to communicating and engaging via Twitter this year compared to last year and the year previous. So.
What do you think, Ian?
Yeah, as I say, it's a good point you mentioned. There's a lot more people on social media discussing the elections, But I don't think that's the only thing. I think it's you can do so much for the elections. In any election, you can do lots of campaigning, but it doesn't always mean there's going to be more votes. We just have to see how that results and what happens from that. But there's lots of candidates, there's 9 candidates, they're all very competitive, they've all got good ideas, they're all very different as well in all different ways. It's so difficult this year of how to decide who you want, because everybody has their own specific take on the role.
From the outset this year, I think we were pretty ambitious in our election kind of targets. You know, getting 50 candidates for the elections was quite a big target, but I think throughout the year we've been pushing the elections and kind of getting people involved in thinking about what the future of the Students' Union is and how they can actually be involved in that. And I think, I mean, we're yet to see if that follows through in the actual election turnout. But certainly we've got that indication through just the sheer number of candidates that we've got that people are very interested this year.
Well,
I was going to say as well, going off from that point, is that hopefully voters aren't overwhelmed by the numbers and that candidates do the necessary job of standing out, so that instead of voters thinking, actually, I'm not sure who to vote for because they all seem too similar, I'm going to pinpoint that person because he or she definitely stood out. So I think that's the job for candidates, and it's tougher for them this year compared to, I'd say, a good few years when it comes to welfare at least.
So the union has definitely improved on its communications to the students this year. What can the potential VP welfare next year do to improve communication with students on the topic? What do you think, Ian?
Like also with the election, trying to see what the election role.
When they're in the role, what can they do to improve?
I think obviously they've got the sorts of communication they've got now, like they've got email, you can walk to the office hours. But I don't think it's just about that. I think it's sometimes going out there and sort of like to identify a problem. Sometimes the best way of doing that is going out there and talking directly to the students. So maybe a more active role in the student life rather than sort of sitting in the desk and sort of waiting for responses to come to you. Again, it's an approach that people might take differently. Some people might prefer to do that because that's a more effective way. Others might think it's more effective to go out street campaigning. It's about identifying the needs of students and sort of trying to be there for them rather than sort of just being there.
Tom, what is the balance about going out, talking to the students and being in your office?
That's something that was actually picked up with the question, what would you have liked to have seen the current VP welfare do differently? And actually I completely agree. I think it's hard when you enter the role. I think what people might not see is all the other areas that VP welfare works in, and there's so many different things. It's not just the welfare area. I'd like to, on a separate note, see how many of the actual the VP welfare candidates understand all the other areas that the VP welfare works in. But back to my point, sorry. In that there's so much to do that I think that may have I've overseen just how important it is to make sure students actually know what it is I'm doing, as opposed to just seeing things here and there. So that's one that I'll take, and I think it's really important. We're just over halfway through the academic year, so that's definitely something that we can put into action this year.
And Nicole, on Twitter, are people, liking what the VP candidates said for welfare?
I'd say they are liking it, but it's the fact that because there are 9 of them, it seems like a lot of people are saying the same thing. So a lot of people are like, yeah, that's a good point, but I've just heard it another 8 times.
Yeah.
So, I think a lot of people are enjoying it, but they might be feeling a little apathetic because of just the sheer number of them. And yeah.
So building on that point as well, I think what I noticed from the beginning as well was they all described similar problems. They all identified there was a key problem, but then it's about how they're going to deal with that. And I think that's what the next 3 or 4 days is going to be, or in fact up to the election day, it's going to be how they change from what just identified a problem to how they will actually deal with that problem, and have they got the ability, the experience to be able to do that.
And also how they'll identify a problem before it becomes a bigger issue, because the problems that they had identified, it's because of the recent events, and it's what we were talking about, preventative measures. What are you doing beforehand? Like, how are they going to build on those skills so they're able to foresee what may come, rather than reacting to what has already been? So
I think with the other candidate roles, particularly with the SAB roles, is that VP Sports and Societies have very specific things that they cover, and then for President, I guess it's a similar thing. Education is all very specific, but welfare covers a lot of stuff at uni, and it's so general sometimes that sometimes it's good to see candidates focus in on some specific things that they really want to hone in on. And I think it's a recurring thing. I know from my year particularly, I don't think at question time any of us particularly stood out, because we all played the, yeah, I'm a nice person, I'm suited to the role because of all this welfare stuff. But like I said earlier, actually, it's bigger than just the welfare stuff, and it'll be interesting how they'll focus on the other things that the VP Welfare does as well.
So do you think we need a bad boy then? We need a bad boy or bad girl of welfare?
What? Sorry.
Well, you said obviously everyone's sort of playing the nice guy sort of card. Maybe we need someone who's a bit of a rebel.
I think that's kind of what I'm saying is the issue. It's like everybody's nice that goes for welfare, but you need a nice person. You just need a nice person who's not going to just play the I'm a nice person card. So yeah, it's kind of how they weigh that up with actually being like, no, this is what I stand for and this is what I want to do.
A lot of the VP candidates mention the kind of sense of community we have on this campus, because it is quite a small university. Do you feel that it's particularly strong, and what aspects of it do you feel that we need to improve? Mike, do you have anything?
I mean, from my time on campus, I know in my first year, I pretty much never left campus. You were sort of maybe going to town for some very non-alcoholic activities in the evening. But generally, I think it's nice having that element of community. My only concern from what I've seen throughout the years, I sound very old now, but a lot of talking to people who aren't necessarily involved with the union. I mean, we're all members, but from those who aren't involved, they don't have the link to the sort of the members of the union. They just see the union as a bit of a clique. Now they're doing well with the pop-up stands and things that I've noticed sort of throughout the last few years. But I think potentially what we need is candidates who are just willing to go out, sit down in Chinese at a random table and just introduce themselves and start talking to people. I mean, this is what we tell freshers to do. We tell them to go and make friends and talk to people. So maybe our sort of candidates should be doing that as well.
And do you feel that any of these VP candidates are going to carry on the work of the welfare warriors? Like, none of them seem to mention it. What do you think, Tom?
I think it would be interesting to see what their approach is to that. I haven't really seen any of that in their manifestos or anything like that. So just seeing how they communicate with the student community in their own way.
And Bakita, what groups in our, because we were talking earlier about how our campus is like a mini society. What groups there are excluded, do you think, are most going to be suffering from welfare issues?
Excluded in what way? As in they don't feel maybe they're as connected to the union or student life, or what do you mean?
Connected to the union and kind of general.
I think it's kind of, and it's not a Surrey specific problem, it's kind of a general something that's recognised by NUS, but a lot of the time it can be liberation groups, but alongside that as well, so say for example certain ethnic minorities and different things like that. But I think alongside that, I think typically international students, which is one of the reasons why we also have an international officer, postgraduate students, which is one of the reasons why we also have a postgraduate officer, just recognising the fact that sometimes their voice needs to be recognised as a whole student body, but then also independently of that as well, to make sure that the links and the tie-ins are happening at, I guess, 2 tiers, you could say.
And so we expect that in the next round of the debate up in Rubik's that they're going to be talking a lot about the accommodation aspect, because in many of the manifestos they mention about how the prices of accommodation is increasing, but they're not improving in quality. This is just a major issue. Have you seen on many candidates' manifestos that they plan to manage this problem well? What do you think, Tom?
It comes up a lot, and it's something that we've heard at the Students' Union is an issue. We've had a lot of people coming to us and saying, this is my problem with accommodation, this is my problem with accommodation. And there are so many different areas of issues with accommodation, and it's a huge area. I mean, particularly on the kind of money front, on the way in which the university puts its rent up and the way it does rent reviews and stuff, is something that actually as a union we've seen year in, year out. I'm sure, Bakiti, you had the same thing last year where they say, oh, we're going to put the rent up, what do you think about it, essentially? And it's kind of puts us in a bit of a hard position where we say, well, you shouldn't, but you're going to anyway, and so how do we actually address that? And so that's why this year we're trying to push through, I know it started last year, an accommodation charter that we can agree to between the union and the university to say, if you plan on putting rent up and stuff like that, let's hold you accountable to where the money goes.
I'm going to have to stop you there, because we're going to rejoin Rubik's with the second half of the debate on VP welfare, and then you can join us back here down at Pundits Corner.
The candidates.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. If everyone who's at the bar wants to make their way down to the floor, and if the candidates want to prepare themselves. Okay, if everyone can just listen up, please. We have, for the last time tonight, and hopefully this time it will work, and I will hopefully be the host that makes it work, which would be nice. Sorry. Run VT. Run VT. There you go.
The candidates for Vice President Welfare, Lucy Kerr.
Hi, my name is Lucy Kerr, and I'm running for VP Welfare. And the reason why I think you should vote for me is because I want to be a source of hope and help for others.
Peter Daly, Tasmin Harding.
Hi, I'm Tamsin Harding, and I'm running for VP Welfare. I care about people, especially the students here at Surrey, and I think I can make a contribution to their welfare.
Sol Harris, Josh Langley.
Hi, my name is Josh Langley, and I'm running for the position of Vice President for Welfare. One reason why you should consider electing me as your VP Welfare is that I can bring something different to the role, and I will fight for you on the issues that matter.
Munya Madari Kiri.
Hi everyone, my name is Munya, and I'm running for VP Welfare. You should vote for me because I'm passionate about your issues.
Hannah Story.
Hi guys, my name is Hannah Story, and I'm running for the VP Welfare position at the Student Union. I think that you should vote for me because I want to make sure every student gets the best university experience at Surrey.
Tilly Tasker.
Hi guys, I'm Tilly Tasker, and I'm running for VP Welfare. My key manifesto points are increased communication, prioritise happiness, and celebrate Surrey.
Hannah Waterhouse.
Hi, I'm Hannah. I'm running to be your VP Welfare. A vote for me means an experienced candidate who promises to use my knowledge of the Students' Union to make what you want happen.
So, welcome back on stage the candidates for VP Welfare. Good luck.
Now, spin. Yeah. Apparently I was higher than everyone else,
Almost one for my walk.
Sorry.
I still don't know what you're saying.
Okay, hello, is the mic on?
Hi.
Okay, so I'm going to walk around a bit because it's quite hot on the stage and I'm used to sitting down. So, I have some slightly trickier questions for you this half. That was a warm-up, the first half. So, first of all, a couple of these have been submitted by some students, some via Twitter, some via my brain. So the first one, this is from an anonymous member of staff. As you know, this election is run by STV, so it's an alternative vote system, single transferable votes. You give preference to who you want to win in each order. So you go 1, 2, 3, all the way down to 10, remember Ron. So my question to you is, excluding Ron, who is your number 9? Thank you. I'm here all week. And I am here all week. And that question goes, first of all, to Munya. One name, no explanation, we don't have time.
Without time? A time to think, or can I just...
Oh, it's harsh, sorry.
Charlie, time to think, or...
You can have time to think. You can have time.
You said
we'll give him a little bit of time
so
to think.
assumed.
Not because it's harsh. Right. Have a think, have a think. Right, reconsideration, very brief justification. Please do keep this brief, because for everyone involved. So, I'm going to go to Munya, 10 more seconds. It's always hard to start, So a name... Okay, they're getting the manifesto, so I'll give them a little bit more time, let's be fair. Does everyone have a copy? Or just use your head?
Do you want a copy?
Oh.
Can you come back to me?
I think we might invite security for tomorrow. I'm feeling very vulnerable right now. Okay, why do you think I'm not on the stage? So, Munya, name and a very brief justification.
I want to try and do it on manifestos.
Okay, name and justification on the manifesto.
This is my guy, and he's outside of it, he's a very good friend of mine. Josh, the only reason is because your manifesto has the least to it.
Okay, I'm gonna thank you for the answer. I'm gonna go now to Josh.
I'm also going to go on manifestos, and no, I'm not going to respond in the way you might think, because Munya is a good friend of mine, and I also respect him, and I think he'd be very good in the role. My answer is Peter, and I'm sorry, it's because I find your gimmicky manifesto really annoying. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm going to go to Peter. Surprisingly.
Ouch. I'm really sorry, Saul, but I didn't know you for very long, still don't, and from what people have told me about what you did last year, I'm struggling to think that you've changed.
If there was a trend for comments, the trend from the last half would have been they're all nice, so that's kind of why this question's been put in there. Not to make them not look nice, but to distinguish people. We're going next to Saul.
I can't answer that at all, can I? I can't.
You can answer it with... No. You've already had the opportunity to do that. Please, just a name and why.
Oh, so many options.
I think you just lost 8 votes.
Okay, well, being that I feel I've proved that I have proved myself that I have changed this year with lots of things. Peter, by looking at your manifesto, you haven't changed this year, so that's why I would go Peter.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go next to Hannah Waterhouse.
I'd say Josh, because for a similar reason from Munya, I don't really have a sense of who you are or what you're actually wanting to do in the specifics from your manifesto, and I haven't really spoken to you, so I haven't been able to prove otherwise.
Thank you, Hannah. Bear in mind, this is not the weakest link, and we will not be eliminating one of these candidates, so don't worry, this is just opinions. Okay, although it would give me a seat. Tilly.
Oh dear. I'm going to say Josh as well, because I'm afraid to say, Maddy, that your manifesto just does not grasp the bigger picture of issues that the majority of students have on this campus. and I'm really, really, really sorry, but that's why I'm saying your name.
Okay, I'm going to go next to Hannah Story.
Sorry, Saul. It's partly actually mainly because you've got promises about the transport that I don't necessarily think you can fulfil.
Can I answer that straight away? Is that?
No. If do you want to finish your?
No, that's
to finish your reason.
Yeah.
You'll have opportunity. Don't worry. There are some questions which will definitely give opportunity for that kind of thing. Lucy.
I'm going to have to say Hannah Story. That was me. Who did that? Not nice. Not because I think she's an absolutely lovely girl. I don't know her that well, but I just feel like her manifesto isn't that hard-hitting, doesn't really impact me that much.
Okay, thank you. And if I'm counting correctly, it's finally Tamsin.
Thank you. I would have to say Sol, mostly because I have spoken to you, and you seem like a lovely person, but I would struggle to come to you if I had an issue to talk about, and I think that's what welfare is.
So, before the break, we heard these candidates say how they were all courageous and how they could all make difficult decisions. I think they have all just done that, so we can have a round of applause, please. Right, okay, so are we warmed up? Are we enjoying the evening? Candidates who are up on Monday and Tuesday, I can just see flinching. Don't worry, it'll be much worse. So, I lose so many friends at question time. So many friends. Okay, so any Twitter questions, people on Twitter? I think maybe we should let Twitter ask a question. That's probably fair. People have been tweeting who aren't involved in Surrey Decides. They've seen the trend and they've been hashtagging and saying things like, what the hell is going on in Surrey? And that kind of thing. Seriously, you can do the hashtag and have a look at that. So keep doing that. You're scaring everyone in the locality. Okay. Do we have a Twitter question? Okay, everyone's commenting on that last question, so I guess that's a good response. Do we have a question from the floor? Your hand went straight up. M, direct this question to, where's Leonie? Leonie, so it's to M over here. Run. So direct this question to all the candidates, please. Slow on battery. She might have to shout, but if we just pass it to M. Or sing. Alright, just talk.
Okay. So I don't really know how to phrase it. I'm just quite interested in what you think about this. So it's been commented that there hasn't been much campaigning or presence across campus. We do have welfare warriors this year. Do you then believe that they're a waste of time, or what do you believe has gone wrong there?
Okay, so good question on welfare warriors. We'll start off with Josh. I think it's fair to let Josh start off on this one and work round.
Okay, so it's kind of two questions that you're asking there. The lack of campaigning first. Well, I kind of think that once getting the message out there is kind of relatively easy to start with, and it's the later process that it becomes important. Reminding people of why you're running and what you stand for. So that's the answer to that first part of the question. But the second part, the welfare warriors, obviously some kind of greater publicity is necessary. So, and it's going to have to be at the start, particularly for first years who don't know our processes and who are new to it. So it's kind of greater publicity from the off, really, at the beginning, to make people aware of the services that are already there.
Okay.
It's something clear and achievable.
Thanks, Josh. Hannah.
Okay, I think with the campaigning, I think mainly it's going to step up next week when voting starts on Thursday. So I think with campaigning, there are lots of banners around. I have seen them. I've seen everyone's faces across campus. So I do think there is some campaigning. But again, I think it will step up. With regards to welfare warriors, I think that's something I didn't know about, unfortunately. But I think that if we can build on that next year, that's brilliant.
Thanks, Hannah. Move along.
Firstly, on campaiggning, I believe there has been some campaigning so far. Banners have been put up. I've gone into flats, got a big banner of people I've never met before, approached, managed to talk to them and put that up. On the second point, I do not know what welfare warrant, but I'm willing to learn that next year if I am in position.
I interpreted what Em said about campaigning to be campaigns from the Students' Union put on by Welfare Warriors. So I won't talk about my banners. From what I've heard of Welfare Warriors, they're a self-starting group in terms of they come to VP Welfare with their own ideas. So something specifically I've heard about is concerns for Facebook pages, like Spotted at Surrey. That's something that they recognise could be a welfare issue and brought to Tom himself. So I do think they offer something really great. I think maybe just more publicity, but defining what they are first. So rather than just saying we've got them, understanding what they are, what they can do, how they can help, and then rolling it out to students in a more visual way.
Hannah. And to Peter.
Couldn't agree more with the whole publicity thing, because I've never heard of them before. I'm sorry if you are a welfare warrior. With regards to campaigning, if you are talking about banners, look at the weather, that'll be why. With regards to campaigning from the union, if you've got more publicity from welfare warriors, if you actually know what they are, as Hannah said, then there's going to be more support for it, and they're going to be much more effective next year. So,
okay, Lucy.
From speaking to Tom about the Welfare Warriors, it was something that he wanted to give the people who were stepping up into the roles of being Welfare Warriors the ownership of. And so he kind of said to me that he was stepping back, giving them the opportunity to put on their own campaigns, put on the things that they're passionate about. Obviously, the risk with that is the people that put themselves forward and how passionate they are about doing those jobs. So I don't think it's down to Tom specifically about the Welfare Warriors and what they've done. It's down to the individuals who've actually put themselves forward to do those roles.
Okay, thank you, and Tamsin.
Yes, I agree with what Em said. I don't think we have heard much in the way of campaigning from Welfare Warriors. I wasn't particularly aware of their presence on campus until I spoke to Tom about it, and then I put my name down to become a Welfare Warrior, because I think it is a great use of the students we have here in campaigning for welfare issues. I think also we can use the campaigning through the student life mentors, which I believe Bakita did as well. So using the Welfare Warriors, creating them, using them, and also using that through the student life mentors to get to all of the first years who might not be aware of those.
First name drop of Bakita. I'm sure she's celebrating downstairs. So it's in the pundits corner. Munya.
The way I understood Welfare Warriors was that they'll take campaigns. Initially, last year when Bakita started, it was they'll take campaigns and support the VP Welfare, and also bring campaigns to the VP Welfare that they could do on campus. I thought there's a greater level of publicity needed for Welfare Warriors, but also at the same time, I thought that their presence is also determined by what the direction of a VP Welfare actually is, whether they're policy-led or campaign-led, and so that's something that needs to be understood. So you can separate the two, welfare from Welfare Warriors, so VP Welfare from Welfare Warriors.
Thank you, and finally to Tilly.
I think the idea of the Welfare Warriors is brilliant. It's a great idea, but Hannah's right in that way. They need more of a purpose. We need to actually define what it is that they do. So I think if we do keep the Welfare Warriors, we need to give them more responsibility. We need to be able to say to them, give them the job of actually focusing on particular campaigns ongoing at that time. But we need to actually give them the responsibility to go up to people and spread the word of the campaign. If it's a mental health campaign, to inquire about how people are and actually ask questions. Are you all right today? Without someone feeling that their privacy is being invaded.
Okay, thank you. So, well done to candidates on that question. We've had a question which has been submitted from a student here today. Is there too much focus, do you think, on the Centre for Wellbeing? Do we not have a supportive student community that can help itself anymore? Okay, and we'll start off with... is there too much of a focus on the Centre for Wellbeing? Do we no longer have a supportive student community that can help itself? Okay, it's very difficult to remember who I've started with. I haven't started with... Yeah, okay, we'll start with you, Saul.
I just want to say something first. I don't think it was fair that I didn't get to come back with what was said to me earlier, so I'm just going to say that now.
Stop a second. You can say that, but then you can't answer the other question. Every single candidate here has to have the same opportunity to speak.
Okay, I'm happy to do that.
Okay.
First of all, the accusation that I wasn't approachable for the wellbeing. Back home, I'm a level 2 cricket coach, a level 1 table tennis coach. I tutored maths to earn my living back home. I also worked in an old people's home with my friend who had Alzheimer's.
Okay, so going to stop you there.
Okay.
You made the point. Maybe if you put these things on your campaign, in your campaign literature, that might be a good idea. Then they would have seen that. Okay, so I'm going to go next to Hannah Waterhouse.
I don't think you can put too much of a focus on the Centre for Wellbeing. I think it's a fantastic resource and we should embrace it. However, it is true to say that that shouldn't be our only focus. We should look at the other things we can do to promote support. I think that needs to come from the Students' Union. Yes, we've got a community at Surrey, but I think we need to develop that. I talk about it on my manifesto. I think there's a number of ways in which we can do that, but make everyone feel proud to be at Surrey, proud to say they're from Surrey, proud to say that Surrey helped to support them.
Okay, and we'll go across the side to Munya.
I feel that there isn't. I don't feel the focus on the Centre for Wellbeing is necessary, but I feel that it doesn't mean that there isn't a supportive student environment. But I feel that at the same time that can also be improved. I feel through community engagement strategy, so where we do like inter-halls tournaments were amazing. I did what sport I played? Boob ball this Saturday. That was awesome. That was absolutely awesome, and it was a way in which I engaged with other people. So encouraging that kind of interactivity between different groups and communities and collaborative efforts between sports and societies is something that would increase the community on campus for me.
Okay, thank you, Munya. We'll go to Tamsin.
Hi. Yes, I think we do have a very supportive student community here, and it's important to recognise that, and we should recognise it and celebrate it. Like everything, it can be worked on. Everything can always be worked on and bettered. And I think the ways that we can and are doing that are through the student life mentors. The welfare warriors could be, you know, sort of brought back up to their bigger presence, which they had last year, and also through the use of buddies, which are on some courses do have this buddy system with higher years and lower years. So yes, I think we have a supportive community here.
Thank you. We'll go to Tilly.
I think you brought up a very valid point in the fact that whenever someone is having, let's say, it's feeling a bit depressed, we're too quick to say, just go to the Centre of Wellbeing, instead of actually offering maybe a less stigma attached approach to the problem, because I feel like going to the Centre of Wellbeing is a little bit of like a last resort, really. So I think yes, we do need more of a community of people who are feeling down, people who are feeling worried about their mental health or physical health or sexual health even. We need to have more of a community that offers workshops, offers campaigns, offers much more hands-on, rather than resorting to the last thing, which is go to the Centre of Wellbeing.
Okay, thank you. You have to assist me here. I haven't gone to Josh.
Okay, so my answer to this question is a simple one, and it's about communication. Yes, we've heard from all the other candidates about how there's an emphasis on the wellbeing centre and it perhaps taking too much of the role. I mean, I don't think it does take too much of the role, but it's about just kind of building on those links between students to ensure that there's always someone there for someone. It's kind of sometimes just offering a listening ear or a helping hand is all someone needs. They just need someone to take time and just have a conversation with them, and I think that's often forgotten.
Thanks, Josh. Hannah, sorry.
I think the Centre for Wellbeing is really important in terms of helping students with mental health and certain issues such as those. But I do think there is a really good community here at Surrey. I know everyone who goes to this university loves it and enjoys having the social aspect of Rubik's and all of the things on campus that are available to them. So I do think there is a community, and like Tamsin said, everything can be built on, everything can be improved. And I think that I just really want to create that atmosphere next year, that the community here is really good.
Thank you. And I think finally over to Lucy.
So in my manifesto I talk about building community, like build community. So I want there to be an opportunity for relationship between the hall side of life, so having these, Minya's already talked about inter-halls, that's something I'm also quite passionate about, but also having in-hall activities. This wasn't my idea, these are things that people have suggested to me and from other universities have said have worked well, but not just using the student life mentors to have these activities to help students engage, using the societies and the sports clubs and the students that we have who have so much to offer to put on events, to put on things, so that
a supportive community is based around every aspect of your life, including your tutors, including your course, where you're living, even if it be off campus. I want to say also that prevention is always better than cure, and the emphasis on the Wellbeing Centre tends to be that that's the last resort, but I think we need to focus on what we're doing to prevent that.
Thank you, Lucy. Okay, so, oh, sorry, Peter. Peter.
How dare you?
Right. I apologise. It's taking its toll on me. 9 candidates is a lot.
Well, with regards to there being too much focus, I think with 2 deaths last semester, I don't think there's enough. I think that maybe over the course of several years, yeah, we focus on it a little too much, but not this year. No, there's obviously something wrong. It's not perfect. It needs to be fixed. 3 weeks waiting list is not okay. That needs to change, which is why putting up student reps or course reps, whatever they're called now, I think they changed this year, giving them more responsibility, reduces the time, takes the focus away from the stigma that is the Centre for Wellbeing, and makes more relatable support networks readily available, whatever course you're on and whatever year you're in.
Okay, thanks, Peter. So I was going to read out some comments from Twitter, or hopefully. I won't read out individual personal comments. You can read those when you get home. And it wouldn't be very nice of me. Who has the longest arms? They would give the best hugs, is one comment. I thought that was nice. That's nice. A lot nicer than what we're hearing here. Do we have any comments from the floor? Just if anyone wants to make a comment. So rather than a question, just behind you, Leonie.
Hi, right. So you know how welfare is like centred around well-being. As a candidate for the position of welfare, what is well-being to you exactly?
That is a question. I'm just going to try and stick to comments, if that's okay. Sorry, but I can come back to questions a little bit. It's just there's been quite a few people asking for views of the floor. Has anyone got a general comment?
Yeah, I think
you shut up.
Yeah, I think it's a bit unfair to actually criticise people on things they've done in the past. I think everyone makes mistakes at some points in their life, and you should judge people in the here and now rather than what they've done before.
Okay, thanks for that. We've got a round of applause for that comment. Anyone else got any other comments? Anyone want to say how they feel? Imagine you're tweeting, but in real life, that's how this works. Yeah.
I just wanted to say, I think Sol was being a bit petty.
Oh, okay. I don't think we should go to individuals just because I don't think it's fair when we don't have a right to respond. So I can't go unless we start saying, "Can I have a comment for Munya? Can I have a comment for?" I'm gonna go there. Okay. Right. Okay. So that was over here. Anyone from over here? You must be thinking things. Just go over here. Just mixes it up a bit rather than hearing the candidates all the time.
I think considering that there are 9 of you, it's really important that you make sure that you're standing out now. Like, stop agreeing and, say this is me, this is why I'm different, and this is what I'm going to do. Because, yeah, there's 9 of you, so if one person, really kicks some ass now, we're probably going to vote for you. So.
Okay, can I just get a show of hands? Does anyone here know for absolute certain who they're going to vote for? Put your hand up if you know for sure. I guess if you're wearing a T-shirt with someone's name that's on here, that's fair enough. But I think if you put your hand up if you just didn't put your hand up, just so I can see as a comparison. So if you're not absolutely sure, I'd say that's more who are not sure. You guys, this isn't just about a handful of votes, about 50 votes or whatever. These people speak, and they will speak to a lot of other people. These are people who are interested in union politics, and there are going to be around 3,500 votes in total this year, hopefully more than that. You need to appeal to that many votes. Okay, you're all nice, you all might get second preference, third preference. If this goes to the 9th round, it'll be the person winning based on who's managed to convince the most people they're at least worth something. I don't think I'm going to go to comments from candidates. I think that's something you can do on your campaign trails. There's just simply not time. I do have one final kicker, you might say. Tricky question. Okay, bear with me. So, rather than me ask you questions, let's give the candidates an opportunity to ask one other candidate one question. I can't particularly moderate this one because I don't know whether they're all going to ask the same person the question. It'd probably be nice of you not to. You have a right to do that. So you are all members. You all have a vote. You have just a right as much of a right to ask questions as anyone else does. So I'll give you a little bit of time to think about that. So we'll just give you a couple of minutes. So if everyone wants to just tweet, I guess, is what I keep saying, so just do that. Or get a drink, I guess. The bar's still open, I think. Let's have a think, come up with a question, and the candidates, just like we have been, will have roughly 1 minute to answer.
I want to make a comment to you.
Okay, I don't know what you're asking me.
No, I want to make a comment to you. Obviously, you say we can't make a comment to the floor.
I don't think it's fair to give one candidate the opportunity to give a comment without giving everyone, so I'm going to have to refuse that, I'm sorry. Okay, just 1 more minute to have a think. I'm just trying to be fair, Manu. I can't give everyone an audience without just you. Okay. Okay. Put your hand up when you're ready. Okay, Hannah. I saw Hannah Waterhouse's hand first. So, Hannah, if you'd like to ask a candidate one question.
I would like to ask Munya. A lot of your manifesto is grounded in things to do with university and the union's relationship with the university. So I would ask, how can you make sure it happens when ultimately the union is there as an influence, but we can't guarantee it?
Okay, Munya, just 1 minute.
I've made no guarantees in my manifesto. Everything I've said is I will lead, I will lobby. With two tragic deaths, I will champion, because I know that nothing is set in stone. So the reality is we are here as the lobbying arm and representing the interests of the students at the highest level possible. And if I'm not championing the interests of students, then what am I doing? I'm wasting my time. I'm not going to turn and say I'm going to promise you a bus, when the reality is there's greater issues facing students than do I have a bus. Like.
All right, Munya, I'll stop you there. Thank you, Munya. Okay. Someone else, first hand first. I think this is fair. First show of hand. I saw Josh first. Right, so one question to one candidate. Josh.
Okay. Munya, you've done a lot of things successfully in your life, and you have a lot of responsibilities. Do you feel that you'll be able to adequately fulfill the role of VP Welfare with your other responsibilities?
Okay, currently I'll give you an idea of what I'm doing now. I run 2 businesses. I'm studying full-time education. I also run and started the MMA society here, MMA Sports Club here, and I'm doing all successfully. Next year I will not have my degree, which is probably the greatest burden. Everything else I can manage my time. It's all about time management and allocating time efficiently and effectively.
Okay, thank you, Munya. I think it'd be fair. I'm going to go to Munya now. I'm going to go to Munya for your one question to one candidate.
I haven't even thought of it, so you can go someone else yet.
Okay, so we'll go to Tamsin.
Yeah, okay. I would like to ask Sol, how would you use the student life mentors, or would you use the student life mentors?
I believe that we should carry on using the student life mentors, but I think that at the moment, all of them, certain cases, it's very worthwhile. Very worthwhile. I've seen students are learning a lot from their student life mentors, but in some cases, I believe that it's not doing anything. It's just them earning an easy wage. So I believe maybe cutting down the expenses on the student life mentor and using that money somewhere else.
Okay, thank you, Saul. If we can have a show of hands from someone who is ready. First, okay, Munya. Saul, Munya first.
Peter, you mentioned as one of your manifesto points the accommodation charter. From what I understand from speaking to Tom and members of the staff at the Students' Union, that accommodation charter should be completed by the end of the year. How is that going to be? How are you going to implement that, or how are you going to ensure that it comes about when it already will exist when you come into office?
If you look further down, if it's already implemented, I'm going to make it better. So basically, if we've got, for example, for the next 6 years or next 20 years, I want to further that, because within rising inflation costs or unpredictability of the market, we want transparency for economics. So we're now paying £9,000 a year. We need to know where that money's going. And if it's not just about the accommodation charter, I want to spread that to the rest of the university as well. So, for example, where are the tutor fees going? I mean, I'm not going to take it right down to every single paperclip and every single staple, but it would be nice to know roughly where that £9,000 is going.
Right, thanks.
Because it's
Peter.
too much.
Thanks, Peter. Someone else? Hand? This is how this seems fair. I saw Peter first this time, sorry.
Josh, your manifesto's great, but what does it do... Sorry, forgive me. Your manifesto is great and your points are great, but what experience do you have in a role like this?
Well, honestly, I have no experience in this role, but I have a lot of experience in my own life. There are a lot of things in my life I've had to fight for, and things that I deserve and things that I need. So my experience is simply based on the fact that I'm determined to make a difference to all of you, and that I've done it in my own life, and I want to do it. And I'm just going to simply do it on your behalf. I've fought these battles before, and I can fight them again, and I can win.
Thank you, Josh. Tilly?
Lucy, I've got a question for you. You've written a really lovely piece in your manifesto about building a healthy community, giving ownership back to students and encouraging each other to look out for each other. But in my experience at this university, people are quite reluctant to step up to their roles. How you get the ball rolling on this? How are you going to talk to them, or how are you going to put the plan into action?
This question was asked to me earlier, and I spoke about my about the idea of giving welfare training to societies and sports clubs. So that's one way, because obviously we have a lot of societies and sports clubs as a university. So that's a lot of committees, that's a lot of people from a vast variety of courses and different backgrounds. So if everybody's receiving like a basic welfare, I don't know what you want to call it, just an understanding, tools, hopefully that will give at least a portion of our students the ability to be able to go out and start community life and do those kinds of things, and then hopefully that will influence other people.
Okay, thanks, Lucy.
Okay. Yeah.
Who else do we have? Put your hand up. Yeah, Sol.
Hannah, in your manifesto...
Which Hannah, to clarify?
It says that you want to continue working on the positive aspects of Tom's efforts in VP welfare, such as the accommodation issue. What can you comment on that, please?
I think that basically comes down to the accommodation charter and how much he's worked hard on that. So basically, along with Peter's argument about how we should make sure we protect students in terms of accommodation issues, I think the accommodation charter should really be enforced next year, and I think that I can do that.
Okay, thank you. And Hannah Story?
I've got a question for Tamsin, actually. You said in your manifesto about having your number available. Now, that's quite a big thing to promise. Do you literally mean your personal number?
All of the union SABs have mobile phones. I mean that number. And those numbers are currently available. They're on their cards. So it's not a new thing. I'm just stating that it is available and it is there for people to use if they so wish.
Okay, thank you, Tamsin. Who else do we have? Lucy?
I feel bad asking Tamsin another question.
Go for it.
Sorry. You study theatre studies, and all the experience you've written down is creative-based. How do you relate to me, an ERA student who has a lot of contact hours, who gets very stressed, who has a lot on her plate at the moment? How would you be able to relate to me?
Okay, so we study different courses. That doesn't necessarily mean that we are different people or that we deal with things differently. If you deal with things differently, that's fine. I want to listen to and accept everyone's different views. Whether I have the same view or not, I'd still like to work with you on, if you have a problem, I'd like to work to promote that problem and see what help I can provide for you or what help the union can provide for you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any more? Lost count. Sorry, did anyone think that was a good round? Yeah. We'll do that again, maybe? Maybe not. Okay. So I'm going to finish the questions there. I think these guys might be very pleased to know that. Of course, you have voices. You have the opportunity to ask these guys questions afterwards on Twitter, on their, I guess most of you have Facebook, that kind of thing. So keep thinking. If anything you thought was missed today, keep tweeting, and then we can see what perhaps we can improve on for the future. I just want to say thank you to stage crew. Look at this wonderful stage. We've got all these lights. Give a round of applause. And to you guys here wouldn't have seen it as much, I guess, up the screen this side of the room will have done. To Stag Media as well. They've put on a brilliant Pundits Corner, brilliant footage with cameras. Well done. I'm going to hand over to, I guess I'm sort of the guy you're supposed to boo off, so you don't have to cheer me, but I'm going to hand over to Mike, our host for the night. And before I do hand over to Mike, I just want to say that I think the presidential candidates, all of whom are here, this is weird, they're all starting to get a little bit nervous, and I think Tuesday is one not to miss. So I look forward to seeing you all on Tuesday. I'll hand over to Mike, so thank you.
Cheers, Charlie. Another round of applause for Charlie, and also Alan, who is over in the back there. Now, for those of you who aren't on Twitter, we've had a lot of interesting tweets going on about. For those who haven't seen Pundits Corner, we've been going into those. There's Antlers Democracy, or apparently I've got to get on the stage. I apologise. Right, candidates? Hello. Yeah, I should be VP for Welfare because I care. Fair enough. I thought it was worth a try. Yeah, so we've had Antler Democracy or something like that, who's been a big actor on Twitter, or actress, we don't know. But yeah, you might want to check them out. They've been making me laugh. I actually asked around backstage for a few jokes. The only one I could come up with by asking Siri, I know, I don't have many friends, was what do you call a pig who does karate? And it's pork chop. I apologise. I am here tomorrow night and also Tuesday. I will spend all of tomorrow at work looking up jokes. So I may also be looking for a job as well. Okay, that's pretty much it. You all lot can go home. If you want to keep watching online, or I don't know if it's staying on here, but you can keep watching the screen anyway. Pundits Corner will still be continuing on afterwards. There's a lot of useful insights down there. There's a really attractive guy in a white shirt, black tie, who keeps coming up with some really useful insights. That's me, yeah. Cheers for laughing. So tomorrow, I don't actually have what's on tomorrow, so check out online for that information. Yeah, so another round of applause. We'll have a round of applause for all the candidates up here tonight, because I thought you did a good job in answering some of the most difficult questions. Another round of applause for Stag Media. Who else can I get you to clap? That's fine. Right, anyway, thank you very much. Go home.
Live in the room in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good evening and welcome back to Pundits Corner. You're here with myself, James Reader, and our lovely pundits. Now, we've just seen the second round of the VP Welfare, and there was a lot of interesting debate and discussion amongst the candidates, I think it's fair to say. I mean, the first round, they all seemed to be agreeing with each other quite a lot, and I feel like they were sort of coming out a bit more in the second round, and sort of spreading apart and coming to their own. I mean, the first point that they were questioned about was the welfare warriors. Now, and around campus, are they a waste of time? Most of them seem to agree that was more publicity was needed. I was just wondering, I'll start with Bakita, who was, of course, VP Welfare last year. What is your take on the welfare warriors currently at Surrey, or last year?
I don't think I can comment currently at Surrey, because I think their position and their role has somewhat changed. But initially, when I began the sort of campaign team, it was more about kind of being aware of the fact that campaigns are expected sometimes from a VP Welfare, but a VP Welfare is only one person.
Yeah.
So having a campaign team just kind of gets the message out. It's that simple, just gets the message out and hits more people if you can have a diverse range of students that are involved in like the campaigns.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my vision.
That's fair enough. And Tom, obviously current VP Welfare, how have you sort of extended on this current vision, or how do you see the welfare warriors this year at Surrey?
I think it's interesting to see how all of the potential VP Welfare candidates would approach the way in which they engage with the campaigning in a student community. So I think first off, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
And just with regards to the points that were raised about publicity, I think that is probably the kind of main issue around that. In that the things that do go on campus, we need to really make sure that we are pushing out to all students, not just the students that are involved in what's going on, but everyone knows what's happening on campus, because we have quite a lot of students that live on campus, but actually there's a huge amount of students that don't live on campus as well, and quite often they get excluded in a lot of stuff that happens regarding campaigns as well.
Yeah, because I mean, I myself, I'm second year now, I live off campus. And so obviously there is sort of excluded from this welfare warriors. I mean, obviously I remember them living on campus last year, but I haven't heard as much about them this year. So I think personally, I would like to see a bit more publicity sort of around that, and I can see what they mean. Another thing that they sort of brought up, maybe they sort of seem to know about it a bit more, but there was also this focus on the Centre for Wellbeing this year, and this one really sort of split the pack. I mean, we'll go to Ian, I mean, on that one. Firstly, do you have any comments on the Welfare Warriors, but also on this Centre for Wellbeing sort of debate?
I'm going to start with Welfare Warriors. Obviously, with both Paquita and Tom's approach, it's been totally different. Obviously, Paquita's launched, and I was involved mainly from the first year when it started. I was joining the second part of the year, and that's very useful in sort of working with students and be able to find out how their problems are and deal with them and sort of campaign on important issues. This year it's a different approach, a bit more focused on what they want to do for themselves, what campaigns they feel important to them, and it'd be interesting to see how it's adapted or if it's even used next year. Depends on who gets the role and how they're going to use that, because so far we have seen very little of their manifestos, but they obviously need to sort of essentially move on to talking about that issue. And with the Centre of Wellbeing, yes, it's been talked about a lot, but it is a quite important issue.
Yeah.
It's something that's been very relevant recently, so it's something we can't just say no, it's not important, we talk about it too much now. You can never talk about it too much and still probably need to continuously deal with it until it's not a problem any longer.
Okay.
So it's something that's probably going to have to go on for a little bit longer, but it doesn't have to be the entire debate around the entire election.
Okay. And also coming down the line to Nicole, what was your take on sort of Welfare Warriors and Centre for Wellbeing debate? I mean, so obviously following Twitter as well, was there any real debate on there?
I'd say that, they did agree with a lot of the candidates who say that Welfare Warriors haven't had as much of a presence on campus as before, and the general feeling seems to be that this is down to a kind of lack of marketing. So in that sense, I do think that, generally people do agree with the fact that they need to be made more use of. And, it'll be interesting to see how, whoever does get elected will further this role next year.
Yeah. And just on the focusing on the Centre for Wellbeing, we know it's obviously very important. I'm not sure how the student community obviously feel about that, but there was sort of a bit of a divide. I mean, some people thought it was quite important this year, although over the course of the years maybe there's a lot of focus, but this year obviously it was needed. But then a lot of other people sort of agreed that it's not the core focus around sort of welfare at university, and there should be more of a community feel to it.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just wondering what your sort of take was. Do you think there's a strong community and that everyone can chip in?
I would say that there is a strong community for the Centre for Wellbeing, but there was also a lot of thought that agreement with the fact that there should be more prevention rather than cure, and that Centre for Wellbeing shouldn't be the first port of call for when someone does have problems. So it does seem that it's quite isolated, that people don't really get to make the most use of it. But in the same way, it should be made more use of.
As Tom and Paquita, obviously, as being VP welfares in the past, what was your take on start with Tom, on the whole community aspect, and should it be less focus on one place and more students helping each other out with the whole community thing?
I'm just going to briefly go back to a previous point, in that Centre for Wellbeing is a great resource that we have at this university.
It is, I agree.
But it's run by the university. It's not run by the Students' Union. And we don't actually have control over what happens at the Centre for Wellbeing. And I think some of the candidates might have been getting a bit carried away in kind of saying things about Centre for Wellbeing that they'd want to change and that they'd want to work on, when actually it's not our service to run. We do have a big voice in the way the university runs, so I think that's something that they'd have to, I guess maybe it's just to do with the way that they see the role. Yeah,
because that was quite a big point they brought up, saying that all this money was going into the Centre of Wellbeing, we would do this and this to change it and help out with the waiting list problem and everything. I mean, obviously that's, now you say, so it's not directly to the Student Union.
Yeah,
like
I mean,
solely.
we have a big influence over those decisions, but it's just interesting to see the way that they perceive their role.
Yeah, Keith, do you agree with that?
I think one of the candidates, I tweeted about her and I've forgotten her name, sorry, but one of the candidates I think raised a really good point in that there is this sort of habit of saying centre for wellbeing, centre for wellbeing, centre for wellbeing, and actually not looking in-house at what can be done. Because as you're saying, it is a university service, so what else can the union do on top of that as kind of little extra, not to replace the centre for wellbeing because they're experts and they're trained and all of that sort of stuff, but kind of recognising how we can, I guess, they can sort of empower students and what services and kind of tweaks can be made in-house in the union to also support the well-being of other students, as opposed to always the default go to the Centre for Wellbeing. So I thought that was a really good point.
That was a good point. And just being joined by Mike Fraser now from Live on Stage. Well done out there. Just seeing what your take was on the whole focus on Centre for Wellbeing or community aspects, and obviously the union don't run the Centre for Wellbeing, it is university, and as Tom was saying, there's a big influence, but do you think there should be more of a focus on students helping other students as opposed to the Centre for Wellbeing being...
I think the Centre for Wellbeing issue has come about because of recent events. I think that's why it's foremost in everybody's mind. However, it is important not to sort of stereotypically focus on one single thing. I mean, there's all sorts of issues. You've got lighting off campus, you've got potential for sort of people who go out for alcoholic activities, which none of us do, but how they get from town to campus. I mean, there's all sorts of little things that, as Tom said earlier, there's no single thing that the VP for Welfare sort of can be tied down to. I've forgotten the question, but I'll keep going anyway. Yeah, no, that's fine. Right, I think, to be honest, that they're focusing on the issues that are prevalent in people's minds. However, again, going back to standing out, it would have been nice to see a candidate go, yeah, you know what, that happened. And yeah, I agree with what all the other candidates said, because that would have saved them so much time. So they've already said, yeah, okay, we'll sort out sort of the welfare facilities regarding sort of mental health and wellbeing centre. But then they could have used their time to say, well, I'm also going to fix these things.
Yes.
Because it was such, I mean, I was standing up there and watching it, it's such a waste of time for them just to go, yeah. I'm going to do the same thing as Terry and Jack or Jane or whatever. So, yeah, I mean, I just think that they've wasted their time a little bit. But the community's important.
I mean,
sorry, to go off from that point as well, whoever is elected may find themselves overwhelmed if they've gone into this whole process with a focus on mental well-being, because that may be at the forefront of people's minds, but students are going to come across all of the other issues, the transport, the lighting, the whatever it may be, and if they don't have it in their minds now as candidates that they're going to be also dealing with those potential issues, it may be quite overwhelming come August and when term starts again next year, so it's something to think about.
I mean, it's quite an interesting point that they were all focusing sort of on that, and there was also the other problems. There is transport and accommodation issues as well, and I mean, they did touch on the accommodation charter, which is obviously going on now, but then there was an interesting question brought up that did say it's aimed to be done sort of by the end of this year almost, or nearly completed sort of very quickly into their sort of regime, and how they would fix that. And I mean, the good answer that came out of that was that they would just sort of improve on it. And I think with accommodation and transport, so against the point, do you think that the candidates have sort of put all their eggs into one basket almost, with just focusing on Centre for Wellbeing, and there are problems elsewhere on campus they need to address? Sort of start with Tom.
I think these are the kind of most prominent things, aren't they? And they're kind of the things that people shout about the most. But sometimes I guess we do sometimes maybe oversee those little things that we might see as little, but actually to one person is actually a really big deal. And to that student, that is their whole student experience of Surrey, and it's to do with that issue that we're not focusing on because we've got this other massive thing to do with over here. So it's like Bakita said earlier, you know, it'll be interesting to see that even though they're focusing on these big things in their manifestos, will they be aware that there are loads of other things involved in the role as well? Yeah, and just Nicole, do you agree with that? Just sort of moving down there.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, as Tom did say, there are a lot of kind of big goals in the manifesto, so it will be interesting to see how the candidates do kind of attack the smaller issues, or, you know, not necessarily smaller, but the ones that aren't generally focused on as much. So that would be good to see.
It could be now even that, obviously now that we've seen the key themes going throughout these campaigns, it might be now the fact that them smaller things, little things they decide to focus on now, which they see as other important issues, that will decide for them for the election whether they get elected or not.
Yeah.
It depends how they take that on and what they do from now until the voting starts.
Yeah.
Depends on probably who's going to get it at the end of the day.
And of course, yeah, just finally, they sort of did the split amongst the room of, do you think there's a definitive split between the candidates? I mean, I couldn't call it. Do you think it's going to be a close run this year? Obviously, there's record-breaking for number of candidates. Do you think it'll be quite record-breaking in the difference in the voting as well?
I think it's right now. I think there's in my personal point of view, I think there's so little perceivable difference between all the candidates as they are, because there's great ideas coming from all over the place, and then there's what he said, what she said at the same time. So I think it's it will be interesting to see what happens between now and next week. If anybody really stands out from the pack.
From the performance from today, I personally think that I know there are the similarities there, but I think there are 3 or 4 standout candidates at the moment, personally.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, because I mean, just sort of you can't really name names in it, but I think there is a quite close call. I think it'll be interesting to see how voting goes, and as you pointed out, how their campaigns will now change, because voting is obviously open from Wednesday till Friday. Maybe how they will sort of advertise different aspects before the sort of voting closes. That'd be good to see. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting point. They obviously have talked a lot about the certain little issues as well. I think in one of the manifestos there was actually brought up that the little issues were important.
And they may be the things that are contributing to the mental well-being issues as well. So like seeing that link. So
yeah, well, that's just about all we have time for. Thank you very much for tuning in to tonight's elections question time coverage, and thank you to pundits on my right and left here, and we will see you tomorrow. Thank you very much.
I just realised